Hello, a special miniature YusofPlays coming at you. I am here in Dallas, Texas, visiting my family for a brief period, and I thought that I would make a small video regarding some shipments and pickups that came to this location. Mostly stuff from Limited Run, but some good, strong picks and some interesting games that others may not have heard of that I can highly recommend. This is going to be a quick video, mercifully for some of you. I know that YusofPlays episodes usually run for a very, very long time. I don't want them to. I just simply, I can't stop the passion. It just flows like a river. And to put a dam in front of that would be unnatural. It would cause the wildlife and the terrain to regress. It wouldn't make sense. But today we're going to be creating a small man-made pond, and we're just going to jump right into it. On that note, a couple of pickups here that it's just all killer, no filler. Got a wonderful game that is supposedly a spiritual successor to Chrono Trigger, my favorite game of all time. Now, I don't know if it lives up to that legacy, to the people saying that this is the spiritual successor to Chrono Trigger. I personally have not played it, but my good buddy Thomas, he played it, he enjoyed it. It is a bit of a bummer that this game released and then they announced, this game released physically and then they announced a major DLC edition. So, you know, it is what it is, but this is no longer complete. But it does come with a nice little slipcover, and that's going to be Sea of Stars. I picked it up on Nintendo Switch. It also is on PS5 and Xbox, but I thought a pixel game like this, it probably runs well on PS5 and Switch. And I really enjoy this cover, and I really enjoy this slipcover. They did the same for Bomb Rush Cyberpunk. It also comes with a delightful map and poster. So just a really nice package all around. I'm gonna have to play this someday because Chrono Trigger is my favorite game. But you know, can it live up to that? I doubt that, but it's probably a good little game. Moving into games that actually entered my top 10 or top 15 recently. I already own this on PS5 physically because it runs at 120 frames per second there. And I already owned it digitally where I played it. So does it make sense to own 2 copies plus a digital copy of a game? It does if you are one of its biggest fans in the world, and that's me with Neon White. If you have not played this game, you owe it to yourself. This is crack. Everybody I've recommended this game to says it's really, really good. At the bare minimum, they're like, it was really good. And those who have similar tastes and similar dispositions as me, they loved it just as much as I. Shout out to Demir. He enjoyed it, I think, just as much as I did. Stuart also played it. He enjoyed it quite a bit. Thomas did. All my homies fuck with Neon White. You all right, white boy? This is simply one of the best damn games made in the past 5 years. One of the great indie games of I don't even know how long, and I might try to get my girlfriend to play it because she played Donut County and really enjoyed it when she got her Switch. That is the same by the same developer, Ben Esposito, I believe. And it's Neon White is completely different in tone and mechanics, but I'm sure it has the same spirit. Another limited run, or those were from IMA, but here we're starting on some limited run pickups. I wanted this game so bad when it came out. I'm talking about like 2010 or 2012, whenever this originally came out. For whatever reason, I never picked it up, but I remember seeing the trailer on Game Trailers and being like, that looks amazing, I need that. For whatever reason, I never had the money or never picked it up. Then you go some years on and it just shot up in price. I'm talking about like $80 to $120 on PS3 and Xbox 360. But they recently did a wonderful remaster, and that's El Shaddai, Ascension to the Metatron. Ascension of the Metatron, I apologize, to the Metatron. I'm apologizing to the Metatron because the Metatron is ascending. Now let's get back on track. El Shaddai, this has a wonderful cel-shaded art style. It's very original, let's put it that way. It is not your typical sort of action RPG, and it just has these wonderful, visually arresting, I don't know what you call them, levels. Not levels is not accurate. It has these wonderful visually arresting arenas that you move through, and a really interesting story where you play as some godlike deity who travels through time. You know, I don't know much else about it, but just sometimes you see something that is so visually beautiful and original that you can't help but want to be a part of it and go into that world. And I think everybody owes it themselves to give this a try. I don't know if it released on other systems because the physical is only available on Switch, but if so, you can pick it up where you want. An absolute classic that got a much needed re-release on modern consoles is Rocket Knight. This is a collection of, I believe, 2 games in the series. The only one of them is truly excellent. That's the Genesis Rocket Knight game. I don't forget what the Super Nintendo one is called. I think Sparkster, but you know, I heard it's fine, but it's not Rocket Knight Adventures. So this is exciting. You know, this got a release on Switch, PlayStation, and PC, I believe. Picked up the Switch version because, you know, it's a retro game. And I'm just excited to play this. I do want an original Genesis copy, but I don't own a Sega Genesis, and that might be a little bit foolish to do that. But I follow this YouTuber, I forget his name, something Duck, Retro Duck maybe. His like favorite game is Rocket Knight, so I'm gonna have to give it a try. I used to play it on emulators at school all the time back in the day, on Genesis emulators, and the Super Nintendo one on Super Nintendo emulators. This next game is such a delightful, original, rare type of game that I had to pick it up on both PlayStation and Switch. That's gonna be Pentiment. This is a game that you can play with your dad, I think, or you can play with really anybody who's interested in historical fiction. That's mostly dads. Dads rock. But this is the rare type of game that doesn't get made anymore. It's a sort of adventure game. I wouldn't call it point and click, but it's like an adventure, narrative heavy game wherein you play as a, I believe, you know, like a Protestant, not missionary, but just like you're like a Protestant. You're like a dude who's a Protestant. Back in the day, that was a huge deal. During, I want to say 16th century, in 16th century Bavaria, in the Bavarian Alps. Let me see. Yeah, walk in the footsteps of Andreas Mahler, a master artist. I'm sorry, you play as a master artist during a time of religious upheaval in Central Europe. That is an amazing setting for a video game, and one that I don't think that you would see in any other one other than some like very, very niche indie game that nobody played, but they should. But here we have a big budget, quote unquote, big budget game from a major publisher, Xbox, about just like adventuring through 16th century Bavaria. I mean, I find that incredible. I'm very excited to play this, and the PS5 version runs at 120 frames per second. That turns me on. That gets me going. Not everybody might be into that, but it just gets the juices flowing. This I picked up, though it is available on Switch, I picked it up on PlayStation 5 only because the visual cutbacks on Switch were just too intense. It also came with some guitar picks. I was learning guitar some time ago, and then, you know, things just fall by the wayside when you're oppressed by your job. So that's going to be, what is this called? The Artful Escape. The Artful Escape. I hear that this has some incredible, beautiful visuals. Not heavily involved gameplay-wise. It's more of just like a light adventure game, sort of like El Shaddai. You know, you're just walking through these incredible spaces. It doesn't have that in-depth of combat. But for anybody who enjoys like 1960s through 1970s rock, this is an incredible visual feast, or so I've heard. You're gonna hear me say I heard a lot because I don't play games, I collect them. We've established that. However, this next game I have played, and I've played with my girlfriend. When she got really into Breath of the Wild, she asked me, like, you know, I was like, I need to play my Switch a little bit, 'cause she was playing on it all the time. And she's like, what can I play that's similar to Breath of the Wild? Give me something. While you play Switch, I'll play PlayStation. I was like, okay, how about Sable? It's a wonderful, more cel-shaded adventure game, indie, by Shedworks. And thankfully this finally came to PS5, and we played it together, and she seemed to really enjoy it. Now, the unfortunate thing about this is that performance is not good on PS5, I think it has performance issues on all systems, but the developers said that they never got enough funding to be able to go back and fix the game. Now that's unfortunate, but if you can deal with some performance issues and some sort of like bugginess, this is a fantastic and beautiful game that is just such a calming experience. I appreciate games like this because it takes all the things that I enjoyed about Breath of the Wild, like the adventure, the sense of mystery, the sense of you can go anywhere and there may be something there and there may not. But this game allows people to just melt into the space. And I think that's really special. We need more games like that. A couple retro games. That's on contemporary modern consoles. We have these next two I paid big bucks for. I mean, not like $400 or anything, but more than I usually like to pay, which is like 20 bucks. So these next two are really interesting pickups. This was a collection of the best of PlayStation Network. Now, this is great because this is a collection of previously only digital PlayStation 3 games that includes When Vikings Attack, Sound Shapes. Didn't really care much about those, but I'd definitely be willing to play them. And then two games that I really wanted to own physically and were only released physically in this. That's going to be Fat Princess and Tokyo Jungle, which was, I do believe was released physically in Japan, but with no English on the disc. So this has a physical release of both Tokyo Jungle and Fat Princess, which I think is absolutely wonderful. Two interesting experiments from when Sony did more sort of off-the-cuff experimental games and published those sorts of games and funded development of those games. Tokyo Jungle is the real killer here, I've heard. Fat Princess is mostly multiplayer, so you're going to have a bit of difficulty because those online servers are no longer up. Sound Shapes may also be a really interesting sort of like, what's that game? Electroplankton type music maker. I'm gonna have to delve deeper into this. I did play a round of Fat Princess, but it didn't really work out because, you know, there wasn't online, and I think I was playing with bots and there was only one bot, so it didn't make sense, but I have to boot this up. And the final game that I'm here to present, I played about an hour and a half to 2 hours of this, and I absolutely loved it. This is one of the rare games, and this almost never happens to somebody with a sicko just behavior and an encyclopedic knowledge of the medium like I have, but I had never heard of this game. I was reading a Kotaku article, I believe it was about complaining about Astrobot, and it was saying PlayStation doesn't make those interesting games that it used to, and if we really want to encourage new developers. And then it listed a bunch of developers like Fumito Ueda, Hideo Kojima, others that I knew that make interesting experimental games. And then it listed the developer of this game. And I looked him up and I was like, never heard that name before. And I don't remember it off the top of my head, so I apologize. But I saw that he directed this game, and maybe like one or two others. And I was like, I never heard of that game. What is that? That was Tale of the Sun. Very, very few copies of this in North America that I could find, but I've got a great complete copy, which was rare. I saw like many listings for just disc, just manual. And it's by Art Dink. That's the developer, published by Sony on PlayStation 1. One of the most interesting games I've played in a long time. This really sort of reinvigorated my spirit. This sort of reinvigorated my interest in very experimental games. Next I want to play, though, it's not available in America, LSD Dream Simulator. But this, you play as a caveman at the dawn of time, at the dawn of human civilization, and you have to build up your tribe. It is very obtuse. You will not know what's going on unless you read the manual, and if you don't, it's going to seem so strange. But you play as a caveman, go around picking up food, and you have to develop your body. You start off with 3 cavemen. You have to develop your body by eating food, and each piece of food levels up a different part of your body, your mind, like your intelligence, your arms, your legs, how high you can jump, so on and so forth, and grows your tribe. And your goal is to go out there and hunt for your tribe and build weapons. But it's done in such an interesting, I don't know, like it is not like any traditional game you've ever played. I highly recommend you go and either pick this up, or if you're not able to find a copy, PS1 emulators are doing great, you know, that's up to you. But really, really interesting. You're never going to play anything like this. And it's so charming graphically, and like the music is just ambient sounds of jungle and birds, and then all of a sudden a drum and bass track will kick in out of nowhere and then fade in and out. It's delightful. So really one of the strangest games I've played in a long time, which made me feel good. You know, I'm like, it's not just your typical action adventure, you know, press square to attack, triangle for heavy attack, and, you know, dodge roll. This is what games can be. Tale of the Sun, very, very cool. So that's going to be everything. We've got some really interesting games here. I think if you just want to luxuriate in a place that you've never been before, there's so many interesting options, particularly these three. I think have, and I mentioned, Pentiment, Sable, and El Shaddai have just really interesting worlds that you can sort of melt into. And that's my favorite part about games. So if you like this video, like and subscribe.